So yeah, I'm Yves, just getting the things out. I work for Event Store, which is the booth over there, so you can say hello afterwards. And first question, who cares about the thing on the left, right? Please raise your hand, because there are 100 projects in there. Yeah? So, this is production code from about 10 years ago, and the domain is about mass recruitment and selections. So that's a cool job to have, because my job there was to give other people a job, which in IT doesn't happen that often. And let me get things out of the way there. We had this things called business, a lot of services and things like that. And what you need to know, this is C# from 10 years ago, so don't worry about it. It was not domain oriented, it was really oriented on database. So it was kind of a model which was called in the time database first models. Yeah. And we all know our skills in designing database models. Yeah? So, this was before my DDD time. So, we had this problem back then, is that, I need to explain the domain a bit. And my t-shirt is on topic, by the way. So, it's mass recruitment and selection. So what happens is that we have those selection jobs. There's a job publication somewhere on a government website saying, we need, and actually I looked this morning, 20 data scientists working for, who will work for the taxes department, because they're doing some machine learning there nowadays. What happens when you apply for that job is that you get a job description and there will be tests that you need to do. Yeah? You need to do tests, and those tests there's a first series of tests, you pass them. There's a second series of tests, you pass them. There's a third series of tests, which is most of the time an interview, you pass them, then you go on a reserve list, and then you get the job. Yeah? So the whole goal of that system back then was to reduce the cycle time as short as possible. So one of the things they introduced at the time, and that was a change in regulation, is introduce something called exemptions. So you get a test. If you pass it, you don't have to repass it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and things like that. Yeah? That's kind of the domain. And when talking about mass recruitment, it's from 5 people to 20,000 people passing test for one specific selection. So it's pretty important that we can actually make sure that people don't get tested. So let's look at the mess we have here. And this is production code. Yeah. I said it was database centric, so we probably have something called model.tt or model.cs, which is kind of scary. This is generated, so I don't care. Yeah? Okay, so I just prepared, just for the sake of making it a bit clear, this is the thing called, and I made it a bit more nowadays for those who write C#, a DB context is an ORM type of thing. It's the assessment context. Assessment is in that domain what we call passing tests. Everything that has to do with management of procedures, management of attendees, management of resumes, and as you can see, there's a lot of concepts in there. Attendance, brevet exemption, certificate, checkpoint type, checkpoint communicate, document, language. Ah yeah, we do also language certifications. Yeah? We do language certifications, which have other type of rules. Oh, there's something called organization, person. I hope there are persons, of course. procedure enrollment, batch, procedure recruitment, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Okay. I don't have any problem with ORMs, to be honest. But what the main issue with that code base is the following. Is that we have those classes, and if we look at, I need to look at this one, for instance. Okay. Something, those you see there, has parent target, criteria, dot target, dot parent target. The thing is that database model generated, you can access everything from everywhere. Yeah, so here from a criteria, I can see what target it is. The question is, what is a target? I have a lot of questions that I will need to be asked. What is a target? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, I'm going to have multiple hats here. I'm going to be the pro developer who wants to improve that things. I'm going to be the developer who knows how that came to be. And I'm going to be the domain expert as well. Try to find out when I'm what. So what is a target? This one is rather okay-ish. Yeah, there's some things happening here. I need to find out where is that again. Oh yeah, results. Public servant exemption. Oh, that was the one I got. Language procedures code exemptions. Oh, you see, I have the target exemption set. So a lot of targets, which exempts, select. And here I'm going from the target into the procedure enrollment, its procedure, and does that procedure use exemptions? Procedure enrollment being the term we use at the time to say, I'm a candidate, I applied for that selection process, you have a procedure enrollment. Except that I spoke about selection, and if you look correctly, there's procedure there, no, procedure enrollment, dot procedure, and if you look at the name of the file, which you can't see, it's called language procedures code exemption strategy. So we have some issue with that code. Yeah, and we need to be able to evolve that code because, yeah, there's a lot of new requirements, new ways to do exemptions, new ways to enroll people, new more and more data. So let's look at this one. So just to be clear, I have a question. Who has read the description of the talk? GPT? No, not at all. No, I wrote it by hand. We are going to start our little journey from this point, which is what is in the description of the talk. Yeah? So what you need to know is that when people enroll for a selection, they might have those exemptions coming in. So they already passed tests in the past, they will have exemptions. So, and we actually don't exempt tests, we exempt full modules. Full modules. There's no word of modules in there. So, colleague in mind, we kind of created those strategies to, there's a lot of ways or reasons why people could get an exemptions. And if we look at those things, there are two main type of strategies we can see here. This is too small for me. Target result completer, selection target result completer, which is importing a lot of a hell of things. Can complete in its kind of running all those specific strategy. Again, 10 years ago, I wouldn't write like that today. And there's the language procedure target result completer. I always wonder what, oh, okay, we had target, now we have target result. That's a question. Target result. What's a target result? And it's kind of only running those two strategies there. So, I'm not going to go into that specific code. The first thing, so we arrive at this, and if you look at the naming and so on, it makes sense in the context of that specific place. We have things like public servant exemption, that is, if you already work for the government, there are some tests you don't need to do if you want to change job, that's cool. There are some that might expire, some that might not expire, and so on. And the interesting part, and what we are going to try to do, is create some domain model which will go from I'm a candidate and I enroll in a procedure, what's happening in there. If you look at the code, I'm not going to show that one. If you look at the code in the service that says enroll, well, I'm going to show it. Where are you? Where are you? Well, there's something called procedure enrollment, but I'm sure there's something probably to be called enroll. Oh, there's some tests, that's cool. Enrollment assessment model, this model. Oh. So basically we have a big mess, that's what I'm playing here. I'm just playing the developer who wants to improve this code base. And okay, how am I going to do that? Let's say, do I have something else in here? Managers, procedure. They always talk about procedures. I have a lot of procedures. This one is the good one. I have a partial class procedure which does things. Oh, allow enroll. Oh, enroll here. Okay, what's happening in here? I'm going to make this one smaller. What's happening in here is interesting. Procedure enrollment. If is template. What is a template? What is a template? Cannot enroll in template procedure. Okay, nice. Okay, then if the person currently enrolled, simply return current enrollment. Okay, when people are already in the selection or already, applying for this job, actually we don't enroll them back, but we need to allow them. Let's check that later, what happens afterwards. Procedural enrollment factory. Ooh, factory is nice. Create the new enrollment. This is where I need to look at. Go to implementation. Go to implementation. Okay, find usage. There's an assessment manager. That's where I was. Okay. I need to look where this one is. Where is this one defined? Where is this one defined? Go to implementation. It's an I. Go to implementation. There's probably only one of them that we can be sure of. It's importing a lot of other services. It creates an enrollment. It's adding that to the ORM. Completer. Those completers are those exemptions we had here. We have values for each of the target results. We set the enrollment, return enrollment. So basically, it's a mess of a code base. What's interesting in this specific enroll is that there's no difference between language and selection procedures. One thing we need to know is that in a language procedure, they don't run the same. So language procedures is a certification that says, ik kan Nederlands spreken, or I can speak English, I can speak French. Je peux parler français. Yeah, so we test people on the language, and the thing is happening here is you say, I want to have that certification of my knowledge of French, and that's it. And then you choose a date one day, maybe in a year, then you choose another date for another test in 2 years. So those are enrollments that spans years sometimes. Well, if I enroll for a selection procedure, I need to enroll in the procedure, and right away, as a candidate, I'm going to choose a date for the next, because those selection procedures run over a few months max. If they run longer, then there's a problem with the procedure. Okay, so let's try to extract something. Okay, I have a question. You have to say yes or no. I kind of peeked at the previous talk, and the nice thing about that one is that the code was already in a shape that was nice to refactor. Oh, I can extract this, I can extract this. Do you think I can extract anything in here? No, no. Do you think I have any idea how the shape of my model would be? Maybe. I know there's at least language procedure and selection procedure, and if you look at the code, they are both procedure, which is an annoying thing. The main thing about, and again, if you just look at this create, it's every single time it's accessing that ORM thing. That's something we want to avoid in our domain code. Yeah, we want this data to get in. Yeah. The other thing, if we look further into that code, we and my mate, we are just trying to find out how are we going to, change that, just that enroll thing, how people enroll, and make it a better domain as a start point for the rest. Is we can't do that in that code base. So let's try to see how the shape will be somewhere else. The one thing is that we already know there are two ways two type of procedure is selection and procedure. So I'm not going to extract anything. I just want to see what the shape of my code will be. The only thing I know right now is I'll have a public class, which will be called language what? Procedure or certification? Certification. Procedure is too generic. By the way, the team managing those language certification is a totally different one than the team managing the normal selection processes. And I have a class which will be called assessment selection procedures. Yeah. That seems nice to do that. When you look at the website and how people actually enroll, you will notice that, fortunately, let's look back at this code, is that, where was the procedure enrollment again? I mean, this was days like this, huh? Like trying to see what's going to happen in that code. No, I'm not in the selection procedure. Let's see, where is it? I killed it. Okay, let's try to find it back. Enroll. Assessment controller, that's UI. Assessment, enroll, procedure. I lost my enroll. Let's kill those. I can find them back. Enroll. If is template, there's a template as well, but we'll look at that later. If allowed enrollment, oh, why, yeah. Why do we check template? Allow enrollment, procedure enrollment, try close, has been enrolled on. That's strange. How do I know which type of selection? Is that a selection or a language procedure which I'm booking in? Because I'm in the procedure class. I don't know. Turns out that in the code, somewhere else, there are actually two code paths calling that. And one is actually the end goal is not to have working code, is to see how we can move those things around. Enroll in selection. I'm going to have an handler that says enroll in selection. What I'm trying to do here is knowing, okay, I know I want two concepts at least in my code, which is about procedure, about selections, and the other one is about language certification. Handler, enroll in selection, that's a command. Enroll in language, that's a command. Okay, I have this. In language, and let's mistype it completely, because those are classes. Yeah. Which now allows me to say, hey, look, probably I have this class language. Oh, I already have it. Language certification, which will probably have something like public void enroll. Enroll is the actual term that you actually. I live in Belgium, so we don't say, we say in the role, we say enroll, but yeah, we use English because there's Dutch people, French people, French-speaking people, German, Dutch, so German-speaking people. So we just have automate code in English. Okay, I have my enroll. What would I need to know to be able to enroll people? One guess. Yeah, a person. Okay, we have a person. Oh, let's make it property. Person, get, set. Yeah, I'll probably need that in the other. A person. Yeah, except that nobody in the business talks about persons. They talk about candidates. And what drives me nuts is that they talk about candidates in every single life cycle of what the candidate goes through. Remember, I said, when you're enrolled in a selection, I have my resume. No, I didn't say that, but anyway, you can imagine there's some resume, there's some checks that's being done before you enroll, qualitative checks like, oh, you need that many years of experience, that type of master degree in there are some requirements there before you can enroll. Then you can enroll, then you go to the selection process, and then you go into a reserve, and they still call people in the reserve a candidate. Actually, they are not candidates anymore, they are laureates. So here, it's a candidate. Okay. I like that better. Candidate. I haven't typed those words for a long time, as you can see. So I'll need something called a candidate. Yep. What would be the output of what would happen in those what did I call that, enrollment selection? I don't care about typing mistakes. What would be the things happening in those handlers over here? No idea? I need to check if it's a template. No, actually, I'm not going to check if it's a template. I'm just going to ask something. And I'll just make a static here. Get me a language certification. Yeah? Just get me one. And probably something that is get me what did I call the other one? Enrollment selection. Today talk about get me a selection procedure. Get me a selection procedure. Yeah, it's probably going to talk that strange ORM things, but I don't really care about that right now. Sorry if it's a bit small. Get me a selection procedure. Yeah. Return something. Course null. What would I need to get a selection procedure? How do I know which selection procedure I'm going to use? It's a database. It's probably going to have an ID. I'm probably going to need in those commands over there, enrollment selection, some public ID, int ID, get, set. Do we like ID? Yes, no? If you say yes, I'll leave it. If you say no, I'll remove it. No, thank you. What's this ID? This ID is my database ID. The thing about all those jobs, and actually the language procedures as well, they have a specific code, so many letters, which has meaning and which is unique for all the selections. And that's a code that the business uses. They come to you and they say, I have a problem, because back at the time what you need to know is that the team was really small, 5, 6 people, and we were doing support. So you had people from the business coming in. I have a problem with AFG 19500. That's the business ID that they use, and it's unique. So I'm going to use that maybe as an idea for my language, and yeah, let's use that, and it's just a string. Decode? No. Code? There are better ways to do that nowadays. Huh? It's just what happened at the time. Oh, it's a get. It's a get. It's a set. Probably need to set it somewhere. Okay. I have a candidate. That is nice. Here I'm going to use a code. And here I will use a code as well. Why don't you like code? Because I mistype code. Voilà. Yeah. So what basically I'm doing here is, and again, I'm kind of know what I'm doing because I remember the code base from 10 years ago. I've been very long in it. Is instead of trying to, extract in the code, in the real code base, is trying to extract all the important concepts one by one. And every time I'm seeing some natural number, some type that doesn't make sense, is wrap it in something that does make sense, hopefully. Code doesn't make sense for you, it does make sense for the business. So one at a time. So what basically I'm trying to do here is, without being annoyed by that really big code base, without being annoyed by that ORM thing, is what would be the shape, given that use case, what is the shape of my domain model? If we go a bit further there, you will see that I will add things like, okay, I have procedural enrollment. Did I already add a procedural enrollment? Of course, I need my structure. That's going to be better. Oh, the language certification did return. Oh, we don't return anything here. Oh, so let's do something. I have var, that's a selection, is get me a selection. At some point in time, I should try to compile this. By the way, if you're not using C#, you can do that in REPL, and I need my command code, and I have a selection, and then I can do selection print. Selection, help me there. Selection print enroll. I don't have an enroll here. Do I have an enroll? Language certification. I do have an enroll. Oh, it's going to take a candidate. See, it's probably going to return a selection enrollment. Let's call it like that. Actually, it's not going to return one. I don't care about this yet. I'm going to take a selection enrollment. Get me a selection code. CMD pin code. And I have a selection enrollment. Yeah. So what we're beginning to see is that probably candidate has some properties, but I don't really care about them right now. That code is something important, so that those are probably values only, and that the only object that actually right now has some behavior is that selection procedure. So that is a candidate for an aggregate over here. And the second one, the selection enrollment, is probably a candidate for an aggregate as well. Entity. And this is how, we went from that really code base, just one at a time, one use case at a time, try to add stuff. Because what's going to happen later is, I did say that, looking at the time, because the next one have a really short time to prepare. What's going to happen is that the first thing I showed was those exemptions, so you are exempted. But what does that mean to get exempted? What is an exemption? Why do I get exemption? I get exemption on some results, so I need to ask the business where do results come from those tests? They don't come from my system, hopefully, because I would be in an even worse nightmare over there. So there's probably going to be some Enroll, where is your selection enrollment? This is without any, by the way, there's no safety net in what I'm doing right now. I don't have any code snippets, so that's why I'm kind of looking sometimes at what I need to do. Selection enrollment, please. Oh, equal. Where is my selection enrollment? Selection procedure, enroll. Oh, I don't have it yet. So this object is probably going to have one close method because I need to change. I need to finish my, be able to finish my channel. Why did you get that? Back forward, close. Well, sometime I'll need to close it. But I need to be able to probably add some results. Yeah. Then you begin to ask questions about results. Let's look at results. Oh, those gives results. So retroactive exemption is giving me a retroactive exemption. Oh, no. Okay, I have an I exemption, which is something strange, an EVC exemption. I have different type of results. Let's see if I have. What is a target result? Oh, find me my target result. One is going to find it. Okay. We go deeper and deeper. We're finally going into those results things because they need to come in. And what we see is that there was some strange decision made by the business. Results have those, are linked to a target. That's why it's called a target result. It's a result of a target. And what is a target? A target can be something called a module, something called a cluster, which is measuring competencies and dimensions and indicator. The funny thing is, when you look at the production database, the only result we actually get is on the target. If you look at the code base, if you look at the database, you will see that there is this object which is called a target, which has a parent ID, which has all these tree, and people are frantically adding target, adding competencies, adding module, which we don't use. So that's one candidate which I can ditch out of my system until the domain, the person responsible for, or the team actually, responsible for, computing results, tell me, you can't remove that from your system because we go to your database to know what all the details of the competencies dimension indicator is, which is kind of an interesting thing. Why did that happen? Is that in the very beginning of that project, it was the project that was going to replace everything. And when you replace everything, what is the first thing you do? You build a framework, because you wait for the business to tell you what to do. Then you build the first thing, and then the second thing. And when the business came in, we want targets, competencies, and module targets, which are in modules which are clustered of a cluster of competencies dimension indicator. And all that was added before it was even used. And it dragged on for years and years and years and years and years. And now I have this coupling with that business teams, those are business people writing R scripts, because giving results is a normalization process. Talking to my database. I can't ditch it just yet. Or once we get confidence with the business that they know, hey, look, the code is shaping in a way that you can even read it. They get confidence that you can go begin doing strategic stuff like saying, hey, this doesn't belong to what this team is doing over there. It needs to go to the team, or to the business team in this case, managing this information, because in that system we only need targets. People are reaching targets. If I need to show all the competencies and the stuff, we need to go over there in that system. And then, begin to delineate those ownership. That's not a move we do in the first one. When I left over there, we didn't even after 5 years after this first refactoring over here, it wasn't done yet. But it was on the plan. We know this thing needs to go out one day out of the system. Yeah. What I actually wanted to show is a horrible code base that you can't change, really. It's just, well, we did change it in the end, but not trying to change it in place and just trying to, try to model things. And it will go wrong. I mean, I'm mistyping things and just seeing how it goes to know how to make that specific code base evolve. In this case, I didn't tell it, but separate every read done to the database from the append, from the write actions, and everything that is a write action, looking at what is it actually doing, giving that the correct business name, and put that in some object or some function. I don't care how you do it, but beginning to extract, knowing where I want to go, I'm pleased with how that looks like, and then trying to move the code base into that direction, one step at a time. Yeah? That's basically all I wanted to say right now. I'm giving a few minutes more for my next, for the next speaker, actually. Voilà, thank you.